Ma'am, won't Shaibi ma'am be joining?
Yeah, she should just be joining in a minute, I think. So we'll just wait for 2 minutes?
Yeah, sure. Good evening, ma'am.
Sherry, are you here?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am. We'll start in a few moments.
Sure.
So, ma'am, we have a presentation to present as well, a small one, just to introduce you all. So, okay.
Okay, I've stopped my screen.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll start in a few moments if that's okay.
Sure.
We'll start by 5:05.
Sure.
Okay, ma'am, I guess we can start now while the participants join. Mental well being is about our thoughts and feelings and how we cope with the ups and downs of everyday life. Now, our mental well being is often affected by big life events that we have little or no control over, such as bereavement, illness, or redundancy. In these situations, it's about how we respond, our behaviors and habits that will determine the impact on our mental well being. IEEE Travancore Hub is happy to announce this session of Pursuit of Happiness, a live mindfulness session in association with the Mood Space. We have Mood Space is an affordable e-counseling platform that aims to deliver support for individuals dealing with stress, anxiety, depression, and other mental related concerns. We have with us Ms. Shaivi Narula, who is a counseling psychologist and a person centric therapist who adheres to the form of eclectic psychotherapy in order to accommodate the unique as well as diverse needs of her clients. She's a multiculturally sensitive, queer friendly, and open minded therapist who strongly believes in creating a safe space for her clients to help them navigate through their journey towards mental wellness in collaborative process brimming with insights for learning and growth. We also have with us here Vidhi ma'am. We welcome you all. We esteem to have you here with us. Over to you,
Hi,
ma'am.
thank you so much for having us here. It's wonderful to see so many people coming out here to knowing about mental health and what mindfulness is. It's really wonderful to be here in this space to be able to share what it is about and how is it that we can deal with these things that are so uncertain, so unpleasant around us. Yet we have some tools to be able to deal with them. So thank you so much for having us here. And yes, as you said, that we have Vidhi Tamboli, one of our co-founders and psychologists from the Mood Space here as well, who will be co-facilitating the session with me. Hi, Vidhi.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, ma'am. Thank you for joining.
All right.
Yeah, so could you please share the screen, Vidhi? Will you be sharing the screen?
Yeah, just give me a second.
Yeah, sure.
So as I share the screen, I guess we are here to talk about mindfulness. While we want to keep it interactive, we were wondering if either you unmute yourself or feel free to write on the chat box, as in when you have questions or any comments or any thoughts that come to your mind. Yeah.
Sure, ma'am.
My screen. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Vidhi.
Awesome. So just a quick question for everyone. Do you all know what mindfulness means? Can we have some comments on the chat box? What is mindfulness?
There sure are a lot of mental health pages on Instagram, on LinkedIn, everywhere, who are talking about mindfulness. But are we really aware of what is it about, in what situations do we practice, and how is it that we practice mindfulness?
Any thoughts? Anyone?
Being aware of your thoughts and dealing with it, being in the present, to be aware of what we are going through. Absolutely.
Yeah. So while you are all right, I will add that mindfulness is presence of mind completely on the task. It's a state of being where your body and your mind are in the same place at the same time. So being present in this moment. So as we are trying to do that today during this session, can we have a quick yes from everyone who is present here today, so that we know that you are here and being mindful in this moment with us? Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Amazing, you guys.
So while I understand and we understand that many of you have a lot of things to do right now, we want you to tune out of all of that for the next 40 minutes. All we're asking for 40 minutes of your time when you're not looking at your phone while being with your video off, right? So 40 minutes of your time being mindful and present in this moment as we work through different activities. We're going to do quick 2 to 3 minute activities so that you can use those activities moving forward as and when you find yourself being anxious. A lot of times when we are anxious, we are constantly thinking about our past or about our present moment, about our future.
Yeah.
Worrying about our future, being fixated in the worst case scenario, that what if this happens, right? Talking about the what if, that's when we find ourselves being anxious. So the idea is that we cannot go back to our past, nor are we in control of our future. So how can we bring ourselves back in the present moment and be mindful of the current time that we are in? Because that is the only thing that is in our control, is this moment and the thoughts that we are having in this moment. So thank you everyone for starting off with the yeses. I'm sure some of you have still not said yes, and I hope we can see some more yeses, because I can see there's 32 people on this call right now. Okay, so as we start, can I quickly get everyone to tune out? Like I said, tune out of everything, close your eyes, and make sure your palms are facing up. We're just going to take a moment to tune into our body and listen to our mind and our bodies. Take a few deep breaths and keep the focus in between your eyes. Allow your thoughts to flow through as they come to your mind. Recognize the thought. As you recognize the thoughts, bring yourself back to the present moment. Let yourself know that we don't need to engage with that thought right away. Let yourself know that you will get to the thoughts later. As the thought crosses your mind, let it pass through. Be aware of it. Be conscious of that thought that comes to your mind and let it go. After a few deep breaths, ask yourself, how am I feeling today? Ask yourself, how am I feeling right now in this moment? The idea is to tune inwards and honor your feelings, to honor your thoughts as they come to you in this current moment. Be with yourself. Be with yourself even with the uncomfortable and negative thoughts, by giving them the space to be as they are. After a few deep breaths, whenever you're ready, open your eyes and relax. As you open your eyes, what are some of the words and phrases that came to your mind when you asked yourself, how am I feeling? When you're ready, looking forward to seeing some responses on the chat box, or you can unmute and speak as well. What were some words and phrases that came to your mind as you asked yourself, how am I feeling right now? Thank you for sharing, Thomas. Deadlines, worried, anxiety. Yeah. Tensed, sure. Anxious, confused. Confused, fear. Thank you for sharing, and for everyone else, feel free to add on um, as and when there are thoughts that cross your mind right now. Frustrated, confused, fear to trust, sure. It's really great that you're recognizing these thoughts and emotions, because the first step towards being mindful is to be aware of it, right? To be aware of what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and eventually how you're acting on to these thoughts and emotions. And that brings us to our next slide. What is the basis of being mindful? Worried? Sure. So thank you everyone for sharing. It's really nice and brave of you to come out and talk about it. It's not easy, but the fact that you're doing it and the fact that you're even recognizing it is the first step to mindfulness. And mindfulness involves acceptance. It involves your own attention to your thoughts and feelings without judging them. I am feeling anxious. I am feeling confused. I am feeling scared. When I'm able to say that without judging those thoughts, but just being there and being aware of them, that's the first step. Because there is no right or wrong way to think or feel in any given moment. There is no right way to feel anxious, or there is no wrong way to feel anxious. So when we practice mindfulness, our thoughts tune into what we are sensing in the present moment, rather than going back to my past or imagining the future. It's telling me that this is what my mind and my body is doing right now, or is feeling right now. And that brings us to awareness, that it's important when we're able to let our thoughts be with us, when we are aware of the kind of negative thoughts that are coming to my mind, even if it makes me feel uncomfortable, is when I've reached that level of awareness. So, what is self awareness? Would anyone like to add that to the chat box? What does self awareness mean for you? Or what does it mean to be self aware? Yeah. And what happens when you're aware of your thoughts and emotions in that moment? Sure, to know oneself. When you're able to do that, when you're able to be aware of these thoughts, this is your first step towards taking control of your life, being able to create what you want and to be able to master your own future. So when you choose to focus your energy, your emotions, your personality, you determine where you will end up, because now you are aware of, like Anmol says, knowing your own strengths, knowing your own weaknesses. knowing your emotional quotient to know what triggers you and what calms you. So when you are self-aware, you can see where your thoughts and your emotions are guiding you. It allows you to take control of your actions, right? Because when you're aware that I'm worried, I'm anxious, I'm feeling a certain way, you will then be able to act on it to make the necessary changes to get the outcome that you want, that you desire, right? It may mean that when you feel anxious, if you're able to understand your anxiety, then you will be able to bring a change to your emotions and to the actions followed by your emotions, right? So hence, to be mindful, we have to start with self-awareness. We have to be aware of our own thoughts, of our own emotions, the significance of being with yourself and the surroundings. So how do we become more aware? Any thoughts on that? We become more aware by starting with our own mind and our own body. So if you have a piece of paper and pen with you, draw out a human figure, a figure like this that you see on the screen over here, right? We will start off by identifying our own emotions and how those emotions impact our physical sensations in the body. Let me know when you're ready with this box. You can just write a yes on the chat box. Awesome. I have a few yeses, so we'll go ahead. If you're able to see the wheel over here, we will start from the inside of the wheel. Identify the 6 basic emotions are listed over here. So at a basic level, it's very easy for us to say that I feel fear, I feel anger, I feel disgust, I feel sad, I feel happy, I feel surprised. The 6 basic emotions that usually come to our mind as we talk about emotions. So what is it that you are feeling or you have been feeling in the last 1 month? Keep a timeline of 1 month to reflect on how you have been feeling. And at the same time, because the topic is on mindfulness, how are you feeling right now is the question that you will ask yourself. As you answer this question, put it on the map, on the human figure. Where in your body do you feel the anger? Where in your body do you feel happy or sad? And you can write down inside the figure. Now let's say that you have been feeling angry lately. And today you're feeling anger. Go deeper into the anger. Anger is just the tip of the iceberg. What is beneath that anger is important for you to understand your anger. What made you react in a way that came across as angry, right? Maybe you were hurt. Maybe you felt insecure about something, or hateful, or mad, or aggressive, or irritated, right? What are the emotions that come up for you? Or you've been feeling sad lately. So go deeper into these emotions and try to identify these emotions.
And sometimes a lot of our physiological responses to these emotions help us understand what we're feeling in the first place. Sometimes I understand it's very difficult to pinpoint on emotions, and I think Vidhi would agree with me on this, that sometimes emotions get complex and we're unable to understand that what is this mix of feelings that we're feeling right now. So for example, when we're stressed or when we're angry, it usually, you can find yourself clenching your jaw, like you're so stressed and so angry that you cannot just let go, you cannot let loose. So a lot of times when you're mindful of how your body's physiological response towards a certain situation is, can also help you identify the emotion that you're feeling in the moment.
Absolutely. So if you are finding it difficult to kind of figure out or label an emotion, go to the next part. Go over here and try to identify the physical sensations that you could have been feeling. As you do this activity, fill up this human figure with the emotions and the sensations that you've been feeling. The idea again over here is to tune inwards into your own emotions, into your own thoughts. It involves accepting yourself without judging yourself in the moment.
So once you're able to identify the emotions, once you're able to identify where do you feel it in your body, just to give you an example, this is how it would look like for some people.
Are there any thoughts or comments that you can add to the chat box, or any questions that you have so far? Awesome. So we're going really slow over here because, again, the idea is for everyone to reflect on their thoughts, explore their own thoughts, emotions as they come to your mind in this present moment. And again, the idea of mindfulness. So, as now that we have kind of spoken about emotions, we've spoken about the physical sensations that you could be feeling. Sometimes it gets difficult to identify this when you're put on the spot that, hey, how are you feeling right now? So, what are some of the tools that you can use to get in touch with yourself? Being able to do this on a consistent basis, when you're able to practice this on a consistent basis, it'll become easier for you to reflect on your own thoughts, to understand your own feelings as they come to you. So, the idea of mindfulness also requires consistency and practice. It's not something that you can do today and not do for the next 20 days and feel better, right? So, as you try to get in touch with yourself, some of the tools that we've mentioned over here are journaling. It's a great way to release things that are constantly running in your mind. So if you are feeling constantly having negative thoughts, constantly feeling the need to speak to someone, or feeling like you're filled with emotions, journaling is a good way to release those thoughts, to release those emotions. For some people, it's easy to write. For some, it's not that easy to write. So write in whatever capacity that you can and that works for you. Constantly thinking about deadlines is something that Anmol has written. Okay, so questioning those negative thoughts that come to your mind, right? So when you are journaling, write down those thoughts. Write it in the form of a letter if it's in specific to a person. Write down in the form of bullet points, or write down in the form of an essay or a story that you're writing. Right? Any form of journaling is going to help you release and understand your thoughts. And over time, when you're able to read those letters or the writing, you'll be able to find a pattern into your thoughts and emotions, right? Become aware of your thoughts, something that we've discussed already. Check in with yourself regularly, giving yourself those 2 minutes in the morning or maybe before bed to check in with yourself, asking yourself, how am I doing right now? You know, just being able to be in that moment with yourself only. paying attention to your breath. Maybe starting with 1 minute a day when you are just focusing on your deep breaths and letting the thoughts flow by as they come to your mind, whether they're positive, whether they're negative, just recognizing and being aware of the thoughts as they cross your mind while you're focusing on your breathing. Chevy, will you take over?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vidhi, for taking us through this experiential sort of thing where we can engage with mindfulness. And I think while this is very, very, very helpful for a lot of people, because as I said earlier, that a lot of pages, a lot of people talk about mindfulness, how it's helpful, how we should practice mindfulness, how we should incorporate that practice in our daily lives. But what we miss out on is how do we practice it? And that was really helpful when you told us the different tools, when you walked us through keeping in touch with our emotions, keeping in touch with our thoughts, and how it's very helpful in everyday life to just being aware of oneself, so that it gives you the time to respond
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of situations where where we feel that we're feeling angry, or we're feeling anxious, or we're feeling pissed or upset at something. All these uncomfortable emotions, when they come up, sometimes we find ourselves very vague that how do we respond to it. Sometimes we want to lash out, sometimes we just want to block ourselves. But as and when we start practicing mindfulness, as and when we start getting to know ourselves better, getting to know our triggers, getting to know our patterns, it becomes very easy for us to get those few seconds in between and understand that, okay, this is the situation, this is how it makes me feel, so how is it that I want to respond to it? So that's how it helps you in defining and making sure how do you want to respond and act in a different situation. So till now we've spoken about how we can get to know ourselves. Let's just delve a little more deeper to get to know more about ourselves. So as Vidhi was talking about journaling earlier, and how it helps one understand what they're going through in a moment or throughout the day, it's very helpful to also have some journal prompts at some at points. Sometimes you do not know, your mind is so filled up with what you're going through, it's difficult to pen down and think, where do I begin from? So if we just take a moment and answer, how am I feeling right now? So whenever this statement or this sentence comes to your mind, I am feeling, what is that one word, or what is that phrase that completes this feeling for you, completes this sentence for you? If you could just put your responses on the chat box, it'll be really good to hear some of them. I am feeling. What would be your first response when you hear I am feeling? Good. Thank you for sharing that, Thomas. Anybody else? We would like to hear from all of you. Any word, any phrase, okayish, all right.
I think we also received some responses earlier saying that I'm feeling tensed or anxious or confused. Fine. Well,
Well, I guess. All right, that's very good to know that we have moved from feeling anxious, confused, tensed towards a bit okayish, towards well, towards fine. So here we can see how mindfulness, or how practicing mindfulness or being in the moment, can help us understand what we're feeling and how we can respond to it.
I think ma'am's having a network issue.
Chevy, we're not able to hear you. Okay, so till she comes back, I will continue from here. Some journal prompts, right? This is something that's going to help you bring yourself to the present moment. As much as it sounds like things you need to do, eventually, when you're aware of these thoughts, aware of your own self, you'll be able to bring yourself back to the present moment as and when the need be. So, asking yourself, what are the three things that I like about myself? What are the three things that make me feel angry? What is something that I like about my best friend? And feel free to write down any one of these in the chat box right now so we can hear from you what your thoughts are on. What are five most important things for me? And the last prompt over here is what makes me feel sad? When you're able to know, I think someone else had mentioned earlier, what are my understanding strengths and weaknesses, is to be self-aware. Yes, to be able to understand what I like, what I don't like, what I'm good at, what makes me angry, right? When you're able to be more aware, you will be able to be mindful in that moment, because then in that moment you will realize and understand the situation around you and you will act accordingly. So, can we get some comments in the chat box? Answer any one of these that comes to your mind. The constant support. I guess that's the answer to what is something I like about myself or my best friend. Sure. Silence is important, extremely important in the chaos that we're in the mental chaos. COVID has brought along a shadow pandemic. People are suffering mentally in ways that they would have never imagined, right? But what are the things that are in our control? The moment is in our control, not the past nor the future. Family and friends are important, sure. The times that we're in, it's so difficult to meet the people that we used to meet all the time, be with the people that we were with all the time. But at the same time, virtually a lot of people have gotten closer to their dur ka friends, family, and whatnot. So, right support system, good food, and good relationships are important, extremely important. Finding the right people who are going to give you, um, who are going to contribute to your mental health in a positive way, right? Who are going to reciprocate the same empathy, the same affection that you are giving them, for example. Extremely important given the times that we are in. So while we talk about being mindful, it's also important to talk about where mindfulness fits in our self-care routine. How important is being mindful in your relationships, because that is a part of your self-care, right? Maybe doing your own things, for your own personal growth and development, picking up a new hobby. Mindfulness plays a role even in that moment, because when you are picking a new hobby, it's important that you are there for that hobby 100%. So mindfulness is, again, we're not here to tell you that it is something that you can do 3 minutes in a day. You can practice breathing for 3 minutes in a day, but being mindful is a lifestyle. It's something to be cultivated over time as you grow, um, eh, as an emotional, mental, and in your physical health as well. Any questions, anyone? If there is anything, let us know in the chat box. Okay. Awareness to be in the present moment, right? Again, why is it important for me to be in this present moment? If I am feeling anxious, I'll pick on to one comment that someone has made about having constant deadlines. So some level of stress is good, because when you are stressed about those deadlines, then you will be motivated to work harder towards those deadlines. But is the stress too much, or is the anxiety too much that it's making you unproductive in any way? Is it too much that you're not able to focus on your deadlines anymore? That's when the problem starts. Anxiety and stress may not necessarily be bad unless they're constantly putting you down and bringing you down. So, really identifying that balance for yourself. If those constant deadlines are worrying me, are they making me work harder towards it? Are they making me take certain actions towards it? That is practicing mindfulness as well, because now you're focusing on your thoughts, you're focusing on your emotions, and you're doing that without judging yourself. Yes, I am worried about my constant deadlines, but I know I will get through with them. Right? So, how does one become mindful? You become mindful by constantly practicing it. One is being aware of it, two is consistently practicing it, and three is identifying it in your daily routine. I can be mindful even when I'm brushing my teeth. Sometimes when you're brushing or you're eating your food, you're watching Netflix or you're watching some TV show, or you are thinking about 10 other things that are there on your mind, about your friend, about your family, about other people. So while we are in this situation where there is a lot of uncertainty and that creates stress and anxiety, we can also be mindful and bring ourselves back to the present moment. That I have 5-10 minutes with myself, so I will focus on my food. I will focus on what the bristles feel like when I brush my teeth.
Thank you so much, Vidhi, for taking over. I'm so sorry I had some technical glitch. I did not realize that I was frozen and stuck. There was some issue with the network. Really sorry about that.
No worries.
Yes, please continue.
So, how is it relevant today in our lives? And we want to hear from you. Now that you know a little bit more about mindfulness, or maybe you were already aware of mindfulness, why is it relevant in today's day and age that we're in? Or how is it relevant? For everyone who wrote on the chat box that you feel anxious, confused, tensed, how can you use the practice of mindfulness to make yourselves be more aware of that anxiety, to understand that anxiety? What can you do about it? By, and how can you practice mindfulness for yourself? We want to be at 100 places at once. So accurate. With social media, we are constantly scrolling from one thing to another to another to another. At the same time, we are on our laptops doing some assignment. At the same time, you're thinking of someone who may be ill due to COVID. At the same time, there are 20 things happening at once. With growing stress and anxiety, it becomes a matter of sincere concern to get to manage it. Absolutely. More networking, more stress and anxiety. So we must be more mindful. It sounds easy when you say that it's mindfulness is to be aware and to be in the present moment. But how do you bring yourself back to the present moment when the whole world is telling you to be in the future with the anxiety, or to be in the past about relationships? How do we pull ourselves to the here and the now? Maybe by staying calm and planning the day out. Sure, it helps for a lot of people. Being able to be with myself, being calm, knowing that there are things that are not happening the way they should be. Mindfulness is really important in the present scenario, but I often find it hard to stay mindful. Absolutely. And that's what I was referring to. That we say that mindfulness is being in the present moment, but how do we pull ourselves to be mindful in that moment? It starts with small activities and small breaks. You take a break every 2 hours and you remind yourself consistently and practice it for those 2 minutes every 2 hours. Okay, then you go back to doing the things you're doing. It is not something that you're going to that's going to suddenly pop up in your life and you'll feel great and you'll feel mindful. It's through practice and consistency. And that I'm going to move on to our next slide, I think. Where are we? Okay, I'm directly moving on to over here where we have written a few strategies. Chevi, do you want to take over?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vidhi, for the support. As Vidhi was talking about how it's important to pull yourself out of, the situation where you're constantly thinking, you're constantly either, talking about your past, what happened, what could have happened if I were this way, what could have happened if I took this decision. So those are endless possibilities that we, just engage ourselves with. And the same thing happens when we talk about the future, that we, just talk about, okay, what if this will happen? What if this happens? What if this happens? And we just sort of get into that loop, get into that spiral of thinking negatively, of having us impacted in a way that we do not even know if it's going to happen. So that time it's very important for us to identify when we are in this spiral, when do we fall in this loop, catch ourselves in this thought pattern, and pull ourselves back in the present moment. So as we spoke earlier, that increasing your own awareness about yourself can really be helpful to understand how you can be mindful in the present moment. And mindfulness is not just being present in the moment. It talks about your intention, it talks about your purpose, it talks about how intentionally you are putting all your awareness, all your thoughts in the present moment to know and become more aware. So there is a technique which is called 54321, or the senses technique, which focuses on your senses and brings you and your mind back from the thoughts onto your senses and in the present moment. So the activity goes about, talking about any 5 things that you can see around you, any 4 things that you can touch, that you can feel, any 3 things that you can, hear around you, any voices, anything, any 2 things that you can smell. You might be in your room, you might have, lightened some candles, or there is this incense stick that's burning in your house. One thing that you can taste, or that you can think of that you can taste. So this technique, which intentionally focuses on your senses, gives you the brief moment of bringing back your thoughts from the past or the future into the present moment, and focuses on your body. This activity, 54321 technique, can help you at any moments where you want yourself to feel more calm, where you want to ground yourself a bit. It can be outside, it can be in your room, it can be while you're bathing, it can be while you're cooking, it can be while you're on a walk. And it really helps with unpleasant and big emotions like anxiety or anger or stress, where you are so, where you're so caught up in the thoughts that you want to react to it, but you forget that before reacting, you really need to understand that how is it that you want to respond to it. Then I think, as we spoke about journaling, thought and emotion journaling is one that we can take up. And journaling is not like you have to do every day. Everyone's pattern, everyone's way of journaling is different and can be different. Some people write it every day, like Dear Diary, and they just write down whatever happened through the day and whatever stood out, and they write everything and anything in it. For some people, it specifically talks about feelings, their feelings journal, where they write about what feelings they had throughout the day, what feelings, what triggered those feelings and how they deal with it. So you can adopt your own way of journaling when it comes to, keeping a track or keeping a note of what is it that you're going through. And spending some time with the nature, of course, digital detox is something that is really necessary in today's time, where everything's just transitioned to working from home and on the screens. So spending some time with the nature or with your family or with your pets or anybody that you have around, any friend that you can, catch up in the building, taking all the necessary precautions, of course, can be really helpful in, helping your mind just unwind and rejuvenate from all of this stress and all of this screen time. And then we have choosing to respond instead of react, as I mentioned. Acceptance and attention for the present moment, as we've already been speaking about, how acceptance becomes the key in terms of unpleasant emotions and when there's uncertainty. When people are telling you, there's going to be anxiety, there's going to be fear, there is worry, there is uncertainty of the unknown and what is going to happen, what is not going to happen. So, in that moment, as easy as it may sound to be said and difficult to do, but acceptance really helps. As you become aware of the fact that things are getting difficult, things are getting really uncertain, it's important to know that you cannot control them. It's not in your control to do anything about it. And once you know that, it becomes helpful and it becomes easy to accept that, okay, this is the reality as of now. These are the resources that I have, and this is how, and these are my options as to how I can deal with this situation in the moment. So the more you stick yourself in the present moment and trying to understand what you can do and cannot do, it makes your future decisions also easier. And then, as we began, breathing strategies is one that helps, that is one of the very basic and very helpful grounding techniques that help in a lot of different situations. Along with that, we also have body scan. So you might have heard of, guided imagery or muscle relaxation techniques. So body scan is just like that, wherein you sit in a very comfortable position, starting from your head to your toe, you pay attention and you pay conscious attention and become mindful of how you are feeling in different parts of your body. How does your head feel? How do your eyes feel? Do they feel heavy? If they feel heavy, focus on your breath. Start taking deep breaths as and when you're scanning your body with these signs. So sometimes we have shrugged shoulders where we don't even realize that we are carrying all this burden on our shoulders. So we just, let them loose for a while. We unclench our jaws. We let loose our fingers. We fiddle with them a little bit. Pay attention to how our knees feel, how our feet feels, how our stomach feels. Because we feel different emotions in different parts of our body. And once we have like a quick body scan, we can understand where is it that we're feeling and what is it that we're feeling in our body in the moment. And obviously, this list is not exhaustive of all the mindfulness exercises. There might be times where you might find your own way of being mindful. Like people have different hobbies, people have different activities that they would like to be a part of. For example, gardening, for example, doodling. All these things are in their own way telling you and bringing you in a space of flow where you can be in the present moment and become reflective of what happened, what is happening, and how is it that you would like to cope and proceed forward. Vidhi, you're on mute. Could you unmute? Yeah.
So now that you're aware of some of the exercises, what are some of the techniques that you think you can use in your day-to-day life? It could be from these ones that are mentioned by Chevi, or it could be something that you are doing or you want to be doing to practice mindfulness. Journaling and breathing strategies. Thank you, Sharon.
Anmol also thinks that journaling is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Breathing strategies again, wonderful.
Thomas, I'll add a point here for meditation. There's a slight difference between mindfulness and meditation. When we sit with ourselves, a lot of times we try to push the thoughts away because we are trying to meditate or we are trying to sit in the moment. So I'll add over here that let the thoughts float by, right? Think of it that imagine a cloud moving by or lots of clouds moving by, and as a thought comes to your mind, allow that thought to sit on that cloud and pass by. And that's an actual guided imagery activity that you can do while you're focusing on your breathing and while you're practicing mindfulness. So think of those clouds, and as the clouds pass by, acknowledge the thought. Yes, I am having this thought, I am feeling anxious, or I have these deadlines to meet, and put that thought on that cloud and let the cloud pass by. So you're not pushing it away, you are choosing not to engage with it in that moment. So the control is still with you. You are in control of which thought you engage with and which thought you don't engage with. While doing all of this, you are still being aware of your thought, which is extremely important over here. Learning to play a new instrument these days, that's nice. Playing an instrument could be a great way for you to connect with yourself, with your own thoughts, with your own emotions. It's a form of self care where you are focusing on yourself. Yoga, definitely. Doing yoga maybe for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Sure, it can be a great activity for self care and for mindfulness. Awesome. So I think, Chevy, is there anything else?
No, I think that was about it, where we just went through the basics and we just helped them understand.
So Thomas, we'll take any questions if there are any questions.
Sure, man. Participants, if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute your mics or put it in the chat box. We'll ask them for you.
To sum it up, there's a few things that we've spoken about. Being mindful is being aware of your thoughts without any judgment. Right? There is no right or wrong thought when you're in that present moment having that thought. Okay, so awareness, acceptance, accepting the current situation that you are in. It is very easy to become anxious. It is very easy to go back into the past. It's very easy to think about the uncertainty and fear the uncertainty given the times that we're in. So accepting the current situation as it is and doing all the things that are in our control. There may be a lot of things that are not in our control, but there are those 2 or 3 things that are in our control that we can do. And one of the main ones being the thoughts that we have. We can control the thoughts that we have, especially if they are spiraling into a lot of negative thoughts.
So we have one
I
of
guess
the
we have a
questions.
question.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read it out for you.
Sure.
How do you stay consistent with journaling?
Thank you for the question. It says, how do you stay consistent with journaling? I think consistency in any way, in any activity, I guess, comes with practice. And a lot of times, a lot of people, and I think it includes us as well, we just put a lot of pressure on us to become consistent, to do it day after day after day. And even if we miss out on one day, we become so harsh on ourselves that why didn't I do it? Why did I miss it? I was not supposed to do this way. I was supposed to, do it right now. This was not how it was supposed to go. So these kind of thoughts where we sort of sabotage ourselves or sort of doubt ourselves also impacts our consistency. So if we are trying to build a new habit or build an activity that we want to incorporate in everyday life, it's also important to understand that it won't happen overnight. It's important to give ourselves the space to not do it a few days, to not do it one day, to make mistakes, and then learn from it, and then know that we have the potential to follow through.
And don't give up on that. Like Chevy said, that you will be so harsh on yourself that you will stop doing it altogether, thinking that journaling is
right.
I
hope this answers your question.
I think they say that consistency takes about 21 days was what research says.
Yeah, to make it a habit.
To make it a habit. So try it for 21 days. And if you don't do it for a few days in those 21 days, then that's okay.
Thank you so much for that, ma'am. Participants, if you have any other questions, please feel free to use the chat box, or we could proceed further. Ma'am, we've got a question. How do you know how much break is enough break and doesn't result in being lethargic?
That's a good question. Chevy, are you taking that?
Sure. So a lot of times when we understand, when we see that we want to take a break, whether it's from a daily life or whether it's, we want to go on a vacation or whether it's maybe in a day. So what is more important here is to understand our intention behind taking the break, whether it is short term, whether it's like about 20 minutes between our tasks, or whether it's like a whole day break where we want to just unwind and not work or do anything at all, or whether it's a break from digital media, or whether it's a break from social media. So these intentions and the purpose behind taking a break is very important to understand in terms of what break is it going to be. So even if we want a break or we want a vacation, so we'll know that, okay, we're going to take a vacation for 2 days, for example, and this is what I'm going to do in my vacation. And what is it that you're trying to achieve from that break? For example, some people just want to unwind because a lot of things are going on at work and they want some time off from work, especially. So that becomes their intention of taking that break. For how long? What about the consequences? And if you already think about what your intention and purpose behind the break is and what is that you're going to achieve, it becomes easy for you to know, okay, this break is ended and this was how long I wanted the break for. And now I feel ready to go back to, having my regular life or going back to doing my tasks or job or whatever comes along.
Yeah. Try to find a pattern. Does it make you feel lethargic? Does it happen often? Is it something that you are just putting on yourself, or is it something that has been there for a long time? Question that as well. And like Chevy said, I loved it. What is the intention behind that break? I think that's so important.
And we've got a next question. I just find it difficult to get tasks done like before. I just find everything too overwhelming and tend to ignore my duties. Any suggestions on getting out of this loop, ma'am? Because it resulted in a pile of tasks now.
Vidhi, do you want to take this over?
I think I first want to acknowledge, I think, Neha, that allow yourself to feel what you're feeling, right? We're in times that collectively the whole world is feeling some sense of loss, some sense of sadness, and some sense of grief and trauma as well, right? We're in times where certain tasks are becoming difficult. Even if it's easy for you to do it, mentally things are becoming difficult. So it's important that you're not being too harsh on yourself. Going back to Chevy's point earlier, are you being too critical of yourself? Are you being too harsh on yourself? Right? And what are these duties that you are ignoring? Right? Try to practice mindfulness to get yourself out of that loop. Try to practice some of the strategies that we've given. Journaling, for example. Try to find a pattern into your own thoughts and emotions. And ask yourself, what are the things that are in my control that I can do in this moment? Yes, I am feeling overwhelmed. I am feeling anxious. Okay, how can I help myself bring myself back to the present moment to be more aware of my thoughts in this moment? There are a lot of things that I cannot control that are happening out there in the world, right? So what can I do to focus on the things that are in my control right now? So practicing breathing strategies, practicing journaling to write down these feelings of overwhelmed, that you are feeling overwhelmed, I'm ignoring my duties. Okay, continuously writing it down will help you find a pattern within your own thoughts, right? When you hit a point where you are supposed to do a certain activity and you're not able to do it, pause over there. Stop yourself and ask yourself, what is happening in my environment right now that I'm not able to act in this way? What is happening in my environment, current environment right now, that I'm overwhelmed. I feel like everything is taking over my space, right? In therapy, there is a technique called STOP, STOPP. And I think it's extremely helpful, right? So when you're feeling this way, you stop yourself. You pause. The S stands for stop. You pause in that moment. Your T stands for take a step back. Take a step back just to see and observe what is happening. This is how you're going to get yourself out of the loop, because now you're pausing when it is happening. The O stands for observe. You observe what is happening in the situation around you and inside of you, internally and externally, what is happening. The next P stands for put it into perspective. If you were to step out of the situation and look at it from a helicopter view, what is happening around you? What is happening beneath you? Or if you were to step out of your own position and think of it from your friend's perspective, what is it that you're seeing? How can you put the situation into perspective for yourself? And finally, the last P stands for once you've understood and seen your perspective, you practice what is going to work for you. There is a little bit of trial and error over here. Even with mindfulness, there is a little bit of trial and error, where you're going to try, okay, journaling is not working for me. What else can I do that is going to work for me? One technique that works for me, for example, is using my senses. So I take a cube of ice and I'll put it on my arms and I'll feel the sensations on my arms whenever I'm feeling anxious, because I will bring myself back to the present moment. I will ground myself back to the present moment, and then I will make sense of the situation.
Thank you for that, ma'am. Before we end, I've always felt the pressure to be productive, but rather than doing something about it, I tend to procrastinate about it, keep on procrastinating. Is there something I can do to avoid that or to reduce that to a limit?
Yeah. I think understand your procrastination first. What is your procrastination stemming from? Right? Are you procrastinating because somewhere you are being critical of yourself? Are you putting too much pressure on yourself? Are you, like Chevy said it earlier, are you self-sabotaging yourself by limiting your own beliefs in any way? Right? What is the procrastination stemming from? And what is the level of that procrastination? So for Thomas, for example, what is that level of procrastination for you?
As in level, you mean?
Like how often does it happen in your day? Is it like doing your day-to-day activities to a point, on a scale of 1 to 10, how is it impacting your day-to-day lifestyle?
I'd say about 8 to 9, ma'am. I'm always procrastinating.
I think that's important to address it, Tom. Address it in a way where you're able to identify the patterns that you're seeing. What is it that you're avoiding? Are you escaping anything? Are you procrastinating to escape a certain uncomfortable thoughts, emotions, and feelings that you think may come up for me, and hence I will procrastinate from now? Right? Or are you doing it because you don't think the work that you're supposed to do is important right now, but maybe I can get to it later?
I think it's a mix of all of this.
Right. It's important to address it, and it's important to do a certain mindful activities. Again, going back to the session for today, how do you be mindful of? Now I know that I am procrastinating. How do I bring myself to the present moment to make myself aware that I am procrastinating right now? What is it that I need to do in urgency right now? What is on my priority list? Right? And breaking it down for yourself. If you're going to tell yourself that I have 20 tasks, the feeling that you'll be so overwhelmed that you will not do any of them. Right? How do I break it down for myself in a way that is going to be beneficial for my mental space? How do I be aware of my thoughts and emotions on a daily basis versus saying that I'm procrastinating all the time? And when you're able to break it down to smaller pieces, when you're able to not be so harsh on yourself and so critical of yourself, you'll be able to understand yourself from a different light. And then these strategies come in that you can use, and try out therapy. For everyone who's still here on the call right now, it's a safe space for you to explore these things. These are the exact things that where your therapist will come in and act as a catalyst. They are not going to there to tell you, be your doctor, for example, but they will work with you. They'll collaborate with you and help you understand and identify those patterns of thoughts, emotions. And it may not be just one thing, Thomas. I think of it from all aspects of your life, your relationships, in your family, with your friends, right? How has that been impacted? Your college work, how has it impacted your belief in yourself? Right? So it's a lot of things that you can work on, but start with the basis of mindfulness, of being aware and finding yourself in that moment when you are procrastinating. Because when you catch yourself in that moment, then you will ask, should I continue procrastinating, or should I pause, reflect on it, and do one thing that I need to do right now?
It also helps you understand your triggers so that when the situation presents itself next time, you know how to cope with it better.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, ma'am. I truly feel like I've learned something new from this, and I kind of know how I'm supposed to deal with it now. Now, on behalf of the whole team, I'd like to thank you all.
Sure. Thank you for having us, Thomas.
Thank you so much.
And we have a memento that we'd like to share. If you just... Thank you, Shavi ma'am, and thank you, Vidhi ma'am, for being such amazing guests, and thank you for letting us know of all these strategies. We're truly honored to have you here.
Thanks
Thank
a lot.
you so much for having us, Thomas, and the entire team. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you, ma'am. It was great. It was great interacting with you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Take your leave now. Have a good day, everyone.